tonight's episode is already starting off great, you know? We're going to talk about everyone's favorite subject, feminism. And, hey, we're going to pose some questions. We're going to have some controversial things to say that probably are not super hot and super interesting. So, I just, a little bit of a warning ahead of time. So, yeah. Also, hi, welcome host. Thank you for participating in the conversation. As you always seemingly do. I appreciate you. You're out there. All right, so I'm going to posit this particular question. Oh, wait, is your mic volume down again? It could be.
We don't think so.
It could be.
We could, hold on.
Yeah, can we hear
Popped
me,
up.
like, easier? Is it clear?
Give it like 15 seconds, I don't know.
Watch it like he's just fucking with us, Watch it just
Shush.
Like... Oh, no, it totally is. It's exactly what it is.
All right, we should have the mic up now.
Yeah, it should be good. All right, so anyways, and if host, if you got me on that one, you dude, like,
Alright.
It's all right. Okay, so anyways, so to the episode. I have a question to pose the audience, to pose you, Rose. Has feminism gone astray? Has the original intention of feminism gone off the rails, gone into some quacky woo-woo land? What do you think?
I think modern feminism has a bit.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think it's bit off more than it could chew, just a tad bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got so many things to focus on that it's, to me, they're kind of barely getting any leeway in any of those, rather than, focusing on a couple at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, this is going to be a bad analogy. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and there's like 100, 200 items and you don't know what to order. And then when you do order, it's not like the best quality because there's that many, so they have to have all the ingredients and all that.
Are you taking a secret shot at the Cheesecake Factory? Are you just secretly?
Actually, no. I'm taking a shot at some of the Asian restaurants I've been to.
Oh no! Big burn coming. Oh man. Okay.
But I think that's, for me, that's a decent analogy because it's taken on, so many people, so many groups that it's kind of, as much as it wants to help, it's not helping as much as it could be had it decided to, actually focus.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, but I also think that, considering the fact that the definition of feminism is essentially equality for all people, that inherently individuals who are from a varying, backgrounds of sorts, a wide demographic, are likely going to fall in the camp of feminism because many of those people are going to be trying to pursue or fight for perceived injustices and attempting to get equality for what they perceive is an unfair system against them.
I mean, I can see that too, but it's just like, again, it's just kind of, trying to take on more than it can handle type of thing.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah. And,
but I can see where you're coming from too.
Yeah, and also anyone in the chat or anybody who's watching this in the future, feel free to send us a message or an email. You can feel free to use the comment section to describe how you feel about that particular question.
Yeah. How has feminism helped you? No.
No, we're not going down that particular part. Okay. I have a bit of a rant here, and I'm going to kind of go through a few things. So if anyone in the chat wants to stop me, ask me a question, go for it. But I'm going to kind of go off on this and kind of explain some things that I kind of feel like. Many people think that feminism is a strong, supportive, and progressive ideology that connects and helps people from diverse backgrounds. I think that's a kind of a fair thing to say, that I think that a lot of people have that idea.
Fair definition. Yeah.
Okay. To me, unfortunately, though, I don't really think that appears to be the case anymore. I kind of have this other idea in mind about what feminism is, and as we go through tonight's episode, I'm going to kind of talk about it. When I was younger, I'd often see, and hear people demanding equality for young women and people of different, marginal, backgrounds. There'd be people who would be marching and speaking and being various lobbyists that would be trying to push certain bills and be fighting for equality. But that's not really what I see anymore. I don't know about you, Rose, but is that something that kind of bam, jumps at you and you go, hey, that's something I've heard of. That's something I see. like today?
Like, I see, protests for injustices, but I don't particularly pay attention because it actually kind of grates on my ears with how loud they are about it.
Mm.
Like,
My particular opinion is this: the people who you hear that are loud, the ones you're complaining about, those
mhm.
people are being loud to try and be loud, to try and be heard. But the content of what they have to say is almost non-existent. They espouse ideas that other people have said in the past without
Mhm.
recognizing the fact that many of those particular ideas are either existing right now, like there's legislation that allows
Ah.
it, or is incredibly fascist and potentially socialist, like
Oh
type
boy.
of policies that could potentially disrupt or even remove several liberties.
Yeah, that's fair considering what we came across when, looking stuff up for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find kind of interesting is when you look at how feminism has been politicized around the world, uh, it stopped being about helping out everybody and making them equal and started seeming like people were starting to try to use it as a way of gaining control. And I don't necessarily agree with that being the point of feminism and why I think potentially it is, kind of gone off the rails.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps, when I think about this, I question, sometimes, is it my perception of the way in which feminism, is that what's changed, or is it like the things that feminists say, the message, is that changed? In my opinion, I kind of think it's the latter. Um, my sense of the situation is that many people who are pushing for more rights and more privileges aren't really aware of many of the privileges they already have. And as such, many of the privileges they're desiring directly or indirectly tread upon the rights of others. What do you think about that?
I can see it because, a lot of arguments are made which kind of sometimes even dehumanize or like make other problems lesser when a problem's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. Like sometimes problems can be postponed depending on the situation, but that doesn't mean it's a lesser problem
Mm-hmm.
type of scenario. Like I've seen people use their suffering to belittle others in like videos and stuff,
And
and I'm like,
justify certain actions that would be
and
considered.
justify, yeah. Like they use their own like personal lives to try and justify their own quote horrendous actions at times.
Yeah.
It's like just because you had for me it's you just because you had a horrible past does not mean you need to put that past onto others.
Yeah, I mean,
You
like,
don't need to become someone else's monster.
yeah, I mean, that's the whole point, though, right? I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of modern feminists, and hosts have even saying this in the comment section,
Yeah.
more or less that feminists are copying other protests.
Like
And
Stonewall.
yeah, and I kind of understand that. I'm not familiar with the Stonewall protest, if I'm going to be 1,000%.
Fair.
But I do see that feminists borrow tactics that have been used by various movements over the years in incorporating it in kind of like their methods. And I think that kind of it runs a lot of risks, and I think the biggest risk it runs is the fact that very few people have the opportunity to pause and think, is this the thing that we need to progress the movement, or is it something that's going to be detrimental?
Fair enough.
Um,
Because tactics change over time, and so do their consequences and results.
yeah, I mean, my personal belief is that this entire thing comes from emotions, and particularly a very common emotion. I think that emotion stems from fear. I think that you can consider that fear is used, at least to some extent, to describe a lot of behaviors that you can find online. I personally have witnessed several accounts of these kinds of behaviors in being conducted and being detrimental to the message of equality.
Fair enough. So would you say like fear is the majority of that emotion, or could there be a couple of others which
Oh,
also like
it's
kind of lead the charge?
oh, there's definitely a whole bunch of emotions connected to feminism. I mean, it's not like they're that's not even like all the messages and emotions are necessarily bad. I just think that a lot of the the negative tendencies seem to come from fear. And so, like, I definitely do not believe that fear is the only thing that's driving feminism, because that's
Yeah,
just
because
wrong.
I'd imagine. Yeah, fair. Because I'd imagine like anger is a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are incredulous against some of the injustices that other people have had to deal with, not just women, but people of various backgrounds who are marginalized. And you know, definitely in the past, there have been horrible, horrible atrocities that have happened to people, and it's really unfortunate that that's happened. And it's also kind of unfortunate that a lot of feminists use the past atrocities to justify injustice actions that they take in behalf of feminism. And I don't think that people who had to incur some of those things would necessarily want that. So, Rose, what are some of the things you have to say about this particular thing? I remember you mentioned you wanted to say a few things.
With the whole, past atrocities and stuff, for those who come at this with more of a angry, more reactive type of mindset, I have a feeling, they're trying to punish the people who did these atrocities, but I feel like they're also unfairly punishing more than they should. Like, they're trying to, a lot of people kind of have put people in the way of their anger that should not be there to begin with. Like, those who, like, haven't done anything to them or haven't even done anything besides exist in the same vicinity, like, why are they getting the backlash too? Type of scenario.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I mean, those are some fair questions to ask. I mean, like, do you have any speculation about any of those particular points?
It might be a misguided preemptive measure type of thing, maybe. Like, if you can force the idea away, or if you can make an idea have a negative connotation, you might, like, stop a person from having that sort of idea because of the connotation. But at the same time, for me, it's kind of, you're punishing somebody for something they haven't even done. They might have not even thought about it until you said it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's just like, punish the people who, commit these, but, like, don't lash out at other people just because you're sad or you're angry or you're, like, fearful, because, like I mentioned earlier, you've had those people have had monsters, but that doesn't mean you need to become somebody else's monster either.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that particular part. Yeah, 100%. I think feminism has a way of kind of lashing out and creating problems, as most movements do. People are flawed, and people are a part of these organizations, and so when they take action, sometimes there are problems with those particular actions. But yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from, Rose. I see the host put a message in there. You want to go ahead and read it? I actually have a couple responses to that.
Yeah, see the latest one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So host says that they believe some join feminism to fix some inconvenience in life. One of their EMT friends said that people waiting at the emergency room for some minor injury would actually call an ambulance to try and get a bed faster. That baffles me.
That doesn't surprise me.
Like, it's not surprising, but, like, the audacity.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I have some questions for your host, and hopefully you'll be able to entertain them. I would like to know specifics of that particular first statement about your belief about how some people join feminism to fix inconveniences. What inconveniences might be fixed by feminism, and what are some of the reasons why someone would choose to do that? Because to me, like, this whole idea is fascinating, but I think that a lot of people will put forth evidence and put forth ideas that are not necessarily something that you can point to, like a statistics. They really have a hard time nailing down specific points, and it always seems like a lot of the talking points kind of get worked around. And as we're going to talk about later, I'm actually going to mention the wage gap myth, and I'm going to show some evidence that kind of points to some things.
Yeah, that debacle.
Yeah, and so that way, because I'm I'll be 1,000%, I'm kind of tired of hearing about the wage gap myth, and so I'd like to really just kind of like hammer it home. Yeah, I think that there's this one great YouTube clip that I really want to show that talks about elite feminists that Rose found that really highlights some of the major talking points of what we're trying to get at. So if you want to throw that up there, that'd be great.
Yeah, let me just lower here this thing so it's not overpowering. All right, here's the clip along with the info if you want to find it. So here we go.
Feminism used to mean something important. People would march for rights to vote, for freedom to speak, and some men would help these women. To this day, there are still men that, personally, I would call feminists. Men such as Will Smith, Chris Hemsworth, and more. But these elitists think very...
I don't think that it's fair to say that an actor is a feminist. Like maybe they are, maybe they identify that way, but the way this young person is presenting this information, there are vastly more influential feminists that you could mention that aren't. You know, I think that's kind of like as a point. And I granted this person's a young person; it's just person's talking about a pretty big issue. So I think it's good on her for being able to get up on stage and talk about this. But yeah, pick some other people for that.
All right.
You can continue.
Very differently to them. For example, they want to push men out of jobs that these men rightfully have. Now, I do understand that in some circumstances that women are not being paid the same as male co-workers, but...
Okay, so like this right here is a statement often heard. She's fighting for feminism and trying to basically state that, like trying to make feminism good again situation. But you cannot utilize flawed elements of an inaccurate statement to justify your position, no matter if you're right or wrong. And so saying things like that, which are propagated, I'll put it this way. I was in a class not too long ago that actually the professor said this exact statement, and it's not accurate, like at all. It's very much taken out of context. So I think it's kind of important to keep in mind what these people are saying, because even if you're for or against whatever is being said, you should have the facts in front of you to make that particular determination. So go ahead and continue, Polly.
This is not what these elitists are talking about. They want to push men out of the workspace entirely.
That's it.
Yeah. So the whole point of what this video was this particular clip was trying to illustrate, at least for my talking points, is this. I believe it is very likely that many women who are considered feminists, who are in positions of power, are very likely not trying to have equality, but they're trying to be superior. They're trying to one-up men, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And
that fits with Coast's current comment.
Yeah.
But the whole inconvenience might have been a poor word choice. It's more like having an advantage, i.e. better pay, benefits, a cookie, etc., without needing to work for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are always going to be trying to look for the easy way out of any situation. Why would you pay for something that you could get for free? Like that's that kind of idea. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just going to put it that way. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying that seems to be something that is very commonly said. But yeah, I mean, host, I agree and understand that particular perspective. Now it makes a whole lot of sense when I put it in that framework. Okay, so I have a few other things I kind of want to mention about some of this stuff, and I just kind of want to discuss this. And Rose, feel free to jump in whenever you want.
Sure.
If you take a moment to ask, any of these young feminists today, simple questions regarding some of the other things that feminists have said, it's been my experience, at least, that many are woefully unprepared to speak about the specifics, or just completely unaware of details that are important to the arguments that are mentioned by other feminists. This is something that I routinely hear, like very often. If you look into YouTube videos, if you look into any of the literature, if you pay attention to what a lot of people have said regarding feminism, you start to find these very odd kind of statements that start with, very often, with the I feel statement, rather than this is the fact. You know, it's okay to feel a certain way about something, but if you're trying to talk about it in the framework of this is the truth, then I think it's important to be able to support those things. Now, you can start off with I feel, as long as you also have evidence to support your feeling. But I think that a lot of these people create statements and circumstances and situations that take away from the talking points of the issues when they're part of a conversation, and attempt to alienate the person who has an opposing opinion. And that is not a way of explaining or turning people to your side.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Like, why is a person going to try and listen to you if you're not going to also listen in return?
Yeah, I mean, like, what's being had there? Are you just going to sit there and, like, yell at somebody, and then, like, when they have something to say, you don't actually take time to listen to them?
Like, it's kind of one of those easy examples of treat others how you want to be treated. You want to be heard, also you should hear other people too.
Yeah. And you might be surprised what other people say. I mean, people's minds can be changed. You know, it is possible to change someone's mind. You don't necessarily have to, you know, come up with the grand slam statement to change somebody's mind.
No.
Yeah. All right. You know, one of the things I want to kind of point out is that, you know, a lot of people want to sandbag young people for, you know, joining certain causes and things like that. And I really don't think very many young people who join feminism are really trying to be a part of feminism to be trendy or to follow some fad or something like that. I really do think that these people, you know, are well-meaning. I really do think that we're really trying to find people who are being supportive and trying to not necessarily be unfair, but they're also trying to properly represent the individuals and people who are not necessarily, you know, represented. So, I don't know. Okay, so it looks like host is saying that my audio is quieter than normal.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, the thing was pretty high earlier before we actually hit the live button, so I don't know why it's halfway now.
I don't know either. I couldn't tell you. You know what it is? It's YouTube saying, hey, Justin can't talk about feminism. Feminism is bad.
Like, I'm gonna do that and that. Like, I don't know how far you have the mic from you, so.
My mouth's practically on top of it.
That might be an issue because it's.
Well, I mean,
from the side.
I backed away and then I was coming closer so that way it could be more easily heard. It's the curse of feminism. Okay. Host, yep. I'm gonna kill you if this isn't really like if this is fine and like you're just fucking with me, like I'm gonna hurt you.
This is gonna be an interesting replay. All right.
Oh god, no, it's not.
Anyway,
no one's gonna watch this anyways. You kidding me?
They don't. Well, they might not. We do.
Okay, that's fair, I suppose. Okay. All right. Anyway, so like what I was trying to say before is I think that the feministic movements have allowed too many movements into their movement. I think by embroiling all of the various disparaged minorities and other groups that have, you know, not necessarily felt included in many of the conversations, it's diluted the intentions and meanings behind what feminism stands for. So like kind of like what I'm saying sounds kind of contrary to what I initially had said towards the beginning of the episode, but that's not really what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is the fact that if you are fighting for equality, then fight for equality. Don't turn conversations and ideas into a political warfare. Don't change things into making everything about gender. Don't make everything about race. You know, speak about actual issues that are the detriment of these groups, so that way you can actually help them, and you can be seen as something that is that's admirable, rather than something that is toxic and, well, problematic.
To say the least.
Yeah. So what do you think about any of those things? Do you have any like major statements?
agree with the whole don't make it about race, don't make it about gender, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
One of my thoughts was, one of the things you had asked me before was, what does feminism mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the way modern feminism is doesn't really match what I'd like it to match. Because for me, feminism is equality. It's to the point where you wouldn't even have to worry about looking at race. You wouldn't have to worry about looking at ethnicity. You wouldn't have to worry about gender equality or gender identity or whatever the heck.
Mm-hmm.
You would just purely look at a person's merits, talents, personality, and that's kind of how decisions are made, not just because they're a female or a male or non-binary or anything like that. It's just, actual, everybody's kind of on a level playing field,
Mm-hmm.
and that's based off of merit. That's what I want it to be. At the moment, it's not.
Yeah, I definitely do not think it is that way.
It's not. It's absolutely not. But that's what I'd like it to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's very understandable. Yeah, I really wish it was that way too, honestly. It's kind of sad that it's not.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I kind of want to point out when it comes to that. You're not the first person I've obviously talked to when it comes to feminism. I recently had a conversation actually with a young woman who I definitely characterize as having feministic tendencies. Maybe not being a full-blown feminist, but certainly some tendencies. That was unable to define feminism to me at all. And to me, this could be very easily seen as an indicator of a kind of problem that often follows discussions surrounding feminism.
It's at least one problem. There's more than one if that's the case.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of problems with it, but there's so many different ways of feminism kind of completely falling apart when it comes to presenting factual points. Because I'm not saying that the argument surrounding feminism is necessarily inherently wrong. I actually do believe that there are some things that very much require and need a vigilant guard to protect. That the moment that you take away that guard, you start seeing people encroach those rights. And so I do think equality matters quite a bit. But I think that there's a difference between equality and someone having extra legislation that gives them privileges they wouldn't normally have. And so that to me is a big deal.
Fair enough.
And in considering the fact that we have so much discourse over these particular things, it's really easy to just kind of talk about all these different problems. But I really want to hammer home a few talking points that are really the most problematic about feminism. Things that you directly, the viewers, will definitely have experienced. It's something that is something that you have, and then perhaps you could talk to me about your issues with things, either here or in the comment section, or even on Discord on Tuesdays. So I mean, let's get into some of these things that really kind of get in the way of feminism. Number one is the idea that feminism is just taking over the writing processes of many movies, televisions, and games with a bizarre campaign that makes women, the center of attention. There are these leaders, there's these powerful individuals, and let's call it as feministic messaging. And I have a huge problem with this. I think the main problem I see with this is that when someone goes to the movies or watches a TV show or hell even sits down to play a game, they are usually trying to relax, maybe even unwind from a crazy rough day. And this feminist message can be seen as a real world intruder drawing their attention back to the world that they're trying to get a break from. And it's super unfair.
Only time I want that is if I'm watching a documentary or something.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this has the exact opposite effect that you want. This is like adding fuel to the fire. Feminists worry often, about being attacked, that they're constantly on the defensive, and wonder maybe why. Oh, host! Oh, come on now! No!
Okay, that's a cheap shot. That's a real cheap
shot, buddy. That's a cheap shot, man.
That is don't get me started. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go.
Let's
Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
Go.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, all right. So to me, like, furthermore, many feminist ideologues will destroy protected spaces. For many people, this of course has the effect of alienating those groups and further spreading discontent among people who already resent the fact that there's this feministic message, or in my case, I hate it. I don't like to see it. Don't get me wrong, feminism is important, but when I'm trying to relax, the last thing I want to see is a political message of any kind. So, don't mess with my games. And you're doing it. You're doing it. You destroyed Star Wars. You're going in. You're picking up all my shit. Don't do it. Stop it. Anyways. So, to me, at the very least, it creates a circumstance, at the very least, where you further fuel the fears of people attempting to take, the rights away from feminists, by creating a circle of people being unhappy. Because you have the feminists who are encroaching in the spaces that are protected, right?
Mm-hmm.
You take those away. The people who no longer have a safe place to play or complain. You further encroach on their spaces, and around it goes until everybody's really unhappy except for the feminists, who are like, why is everyone mad at us? It's like,
Oh gee,
why?
I wonder why. You're not the ones who started this vicious cycle now, did you? Wow, that sounded patronizing. Hold on. Actually, no, that's perfectly fine, because that was an aggravating thing to read.
I mean, do you not agree with that particular statement?
About the whole encroaching on people's territory and making people unhappy, and then it just breeds more hate?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you keep annoying people, they're gonna hate you, and because they hate you, you're probably gonna annoy them further, and it's just a perpetual cycle that I just want to punt.
I mean, like, I look at Disney, right? Like, and the way they've handled, like, so many of the properties, and, like, to me, I look at the way they've treated Star Wars and the way they've treated the recent Marvel movies, and, like, I'm appalled at how much gender politics are inside those particular films, when first they're marketed to children. Okay. Like, that's the first thing I think that should be, like, understood. Like, this isn't like an adult thing. This is supposed to be a fantasy for children to enjoy. Yeah, parents can come and enjoy them, adults can enjoy them, but, like, the primary person you're trying to sell this to, that's going to want the toys that you're trying to make for this thing, is a children. And children don't care, or most children aren't even aware of gender politics. So it's like, why would you have this type of message, this type of feministic ideology inside your films to propagate, this thing? Because, like, at the end of the day, all right, most people, whether you like it or not, whether you disagree or not, are at least raised with a certain type of perspective, right? There is what we have the idea of a boy, we have the idea of a girl, we have an idea of what we expect the boy to do, we have an idea of what we expect the girl to do. There are certain normative, cultural, like, behaviors that we expect to see. And you can't expect a girl who is going to be prepared for a variety of things to be interested very deeply in something that's kind of a male-driven thing. Doesn't make sense. It's not that it's a point of contention necessarily for all people. It definitely is for some. But, like, it's just something that's an obvious truth. And, if you look at the numbers of people who are interested in these things, you're going to find a pretty even balance across the board. But why are we so heavily weighting everything towards one direction? It just doesn't make sense to me. So, I don't know.
Bias.
Oh yeah, there's tons of bias. And which kind of brings me into my next major problem with feminists, in my opinion. You cannot question any feministic idea. You must believe absolutely everything they say, no matter how absurd or how troubling. And to me, it's ridiculous. I mean, realistically, if you had a question, you had a problem, there shouldn't be anything that should stop you from being able to share that particular problem with somebody. You shouldn't have to have huge fight, over this sort of thing. It should be simply, hey, this is what this is, and it's fine. We're going to have this discussion. Not, you're racist, you're bigoted, you're sexist because you asked a question. So you don't even get the question answered. You just get told a whole bunch of things that degrade you, and that's it. And I think that is a huge issue within feminism today, and something that I think is interesting to see whenever you ask questions.
I already know my response.
Well, what's your response?
Walk the heck away, because if they're not willing to listen, I'm definitely not going to listen.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's just like, I ask you a simple question. If you attack me, well, be happy I can control most of my anger.
Yeah, unlike some other people. And to me, in many ways, modern feminists say sweeping declarations that have an unmistakable fascist tone that I can't ignore. I mean, it's deeply concerning to me, and something that's hyper controlling. It's crazy. I mean, if you think about some of the things that they want to do, they literally want to pick and choose who goes where. I mean, in California, for instance, if you have a major company and you have a board, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have multiple women. You have to have people from different backgrounds, regardless of qualifications. And what does that do to a company? How do we know that those people with those diverse backgrounds are necessarily the most qualified individuals to do that job?
You better hope and pray.
I mean, I'm going to look at California and go, well, maybe we've stumbled across one of the many problems that has to do with California and business.
Look, I just hope and pray, because they're not going to answer me otherwise.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, unfortunately, in modern times, college campuses throughout most of the Western world have had deceptive and insidious professors spring up that continue to propagate this feministic ideology and attempt to utilize talking points and tout that as truth rather than showing actual statistical data that supports their particular positions. I don't know how many people necessarily it takes for that to get broken, but that cycle needs to end, because I've heard so many women speak about things that they're passionate about, but that passion is basically been propped up on a stand of misinformation and lies, and so it makes them look ridiculous. And I hate seeing that, because it's not like the people who are there necessarily 100% know that they're in the wrong. They think they've done the research because they paid attention to a lecture in a classroom, and that should really be, definitively, okay, this is the truth. And the fact that there are people who have been recorded saying things that are 100% false, it just showcases the fact that there's a problem. And I personally have a recording of this. I can literally show this. And on Patreon, if people want to hear it, they can message, and I will throw it on the Patreon. Because, I'll be 1,000%. I don't mind showing receipts, but I also don't like to put myself out there if, people aren't going to support me. So that's all I'm saying when it comes to that part.
All right.
And if you don't care, then you don't care, and know that there's truth out there. I know.
Truth is out there. You just gotta work to find it.
Yeah.
Because holy crack, is it buried under a mountain of lies.
It really is, though. I mean, to me, I think that this whole problem indicates the reason why there's a disparity between the number of men who graduate from college and the number of women who graduate from college. We've talked about the fact in the past of the fact that women are able to get more scholarships 3-to-1 compared to men.
Yeah, I remember that.
But a scholarship
that was a nasty number to look at.
Yeah, but scholarships alone don't necessarily gate people from being able to attend colleges. I actually think they help it. Oh, they help it. But I actually think that a lot of the reasons why men run away from college or don't want to do it has to do with the fact that they see this kind of ideology in some of their coursework, and they fail because they're opposing it, or they see it and they go, well, this isn't worth my time. And it doesn't have any merit, so why should I even show up? And to me, that's a shame. I mean, that's just, that just showcases that this type of ideology pushes people out of education, something that is supposed to be a way of gaining, something, being able to learn skills and build a career. And if we're, alienating whole groups of people, what does that sound like? Kind of sounds like that YouTube video that we were watching before, right? Who's getting pushed out of the workforce? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Keep your head up.
Keep your head up.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah.
Survive.
Yeah. So, to me, I think much of the dogmatic political approaches of trans right activists also are found very much like in feminism, and many times these things can be viewed almost cult-like. You know, like they're very similar to a cult because you're told what to say, you're told what to think, you're told what to believe. You can't question.
Believe it.
Yeah, you can't question these people. You can't do anything that would, make something unstable. You have to just kind of go with it.
Annoyingly enough.
Yeah. It's terrible.
I've seen the same arguments. It's like, what are you, a hive mind? For free.
I know, right? Which is about a whole bunch of bees. Yeah. Must follow the queen. Queen is everything. Come on. Yeah.
Which is kind of funny when you consider it's like there's way too many voices anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like no leader, but they all spot the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to me personally, in my opinion, modern feminism has failed and lied to the youth of this generation and several past generations. In an attempt to further a truly righteous cause for equality, many feminists have attacked people who have agreed with their viewpoint and destroyed the barriers that allowed people to present opinions. You know, and to me at least, this is evidence that fear could be a very large driving force within the movement based upon the actions that I see and that we all can see by looking at various people discuss things in social media platforms, or even, hell, even, if you see a debate like live. It's crazy. Yeah, so host.
Why is that true?
Is it though? Or is it that you don't have authority?
At this point, I just bring out the backpack leashes and see what happens.
Okay. I mean, hey, I guess that's one way to go with it, right? Tie him up.
Just put him on like a leash and it's like, don't let him run into like, don't let him just back their head into the wall.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have another video that I kind of want to make sure that we get to.
Is it just this one?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go ahead. So.
Me left them unhappy.
If you look at the metrics of women today, you can see everything from suicide numbers, divorce rates, depression, STDs. All of these things are showing that women are incredibly unhappy, and that feminism is really not something, it's something that we're being sold, and yet it's not something that we ought to be buying.
She hopes this new book will help people realize the negative effects radical feminism has had on the dignity of the family and womanhood.
All right. So that particular thing is kind of an important thing I would heavily encourage anyone who likes to read up on this kind of stuff to look it over. I would encourage any woman or women who may come across this to also, especially look into this, because I definitely think that it is not an uncommon thing to have people in power give you evidence, give you opinions, say certain things that definitely have at the very least misleading things. Maybe the things they say aren't necessarily incorrect, but they're presented in such a way that it misleads you in certain conclusions that you might draw. They try to manipulate what you want, what you're going to think when you come across this information. There's one other thing that I kind of want to also share before we get to the next video, which is the fact that how much leaders of feminism do not want their position of power, their viewpoints to be challenged. Because the moment that you challenge their position, you topple their entire agenda. And they know it. It's weak. It's built on a very, very fragile base. And I personally don't want to see feminism completely go away, because I do think that it is necessary to have a voice of people who are trying to scream for equality, trying to present that, but we also need to make sure that it's fair and balanced, and I just don't see that within the thing today. So okay, let's go ahead and jump in to the next video.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's pull it back up. This was a thing I found a while ago. A long, long time ago.
Why are you so afraid of gender equality?
I'm not. You are. What I'm afraid of is gender inequality, which is what feminists are actually pushing for. You want examples? In 2005, Swedish politician and co-founder of feminist initiative Gudrun Schyman proposed what the media called a man tax, which would have raised taxes for men in Sweden, basing it on the idea that all men should be held accountable for all man-on-woman violence.
This is what I'm talking about when it comes to having facts. If you're going to say an opinion about something, if you're going to have a feeling about something, then showcase the evidence. Showcase exactly what you're trying to say and connect the dots. So that way there's no level of being misheard, so that way you can see the evidence. So that way someone, when they say something, they're not just like speaking out their ass. Now, go ahead and continue playing.
Alright.
It should be noted that Schyman was convicted of tax evasion in 2004, a year before making this proposal. In 2010, women's group leaders in Israel have unanimously opposed changes to rape laws that would make it possible for women to be convicted of rape. They succeeded, and now women in Israel who commit sex acts on non-consenting adults or children who are not old enough to legally give informed consent are not actually charged with rape, and are instead charged with lesser crimes.
Now,
That's
that's incredibly important to kind of point out, though.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why this is important is because you're like, I know that some people who might watch this go, well, that's not the United States. That's other parts of the world. I just want to point out the fact that this is what can happen when you have unchecked feminism writing legislation and enacting policies that directly impact people. This is something that could happen. I mean, Canada...
And it has happened in other places.
Yeah, it has happened in other places. And so, like, these are the kinds of outcomes that I personally would be worried about, and something that I think everyone who watches this should be worried about too. Because that's the kind of thing that creates problems that we need to be vigilant and understand about and protect against. Continue.
In 2013, Indian feminists successfully pressured the Indian government to rewrite rape laws in such a way that only men could be charged with rape. In 2014, Jessica Valenti published an article in The Guardian advocating paying men less than women. In 2015, York University planned to hold an International Men's Day meant to highlight issues affecting men and boys, such as the high suicide rate, shorter life expectancy, and struggles faced in getting an education. It was cancelled after feminist students, staff, and alumni protested and held a petition to ban it, which received almost 200 signatures. To add insult to...
That is just shocking when you think about it. The fact that, like, women are allowed to have a voice throughout the world, pretty much, for the most part. Most of, we can say at least the Western world, right? You can have a voice. But the moment that someone else wants to stand up and say about something that could be deemed threatening to a feministic agenda, suddenly that becomes a problem, and that's got to be shut down. Is that fair? Is that equal?
Not to me.
Not to me either.
To injury, Holly Baxter wrote a condescending article on independent.co.uk enlightening readers why we don't need an International Men's Day. You can claim the definition of feminism as advocating gender equality all you want, but actions speak louder than words. And it's really hard to believe that the feminist movement is really a movement for equality when you dismiss anyone who brings up men's issues as misogynists. You say all men are rapists, you try to ban men from certain places on college campuses, you actively fight against fathers' rights, undermine the presumption of innocence when it comes to rape accusations, and you deny statistics about male victims of domestic abuse, as well as protest and disrupt conferences about male suicide.
This is what men's rights look like! This is what men's rights look like! This is what men's rights look like!
Whew, that was loud.
Does that seem fair to anybody who watches that? Does that seem fair? That's my question for you guys. Does that seem fair?
It's just a sad, sad reality, in my opinion. Like, I feel sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for people that follow that. I mean, hell, I'm a man and I see that and I go, this is the exact reason why I'm kind of like an asshole. Like, because I feel like if I'm not an asshole, then like 100% I get
gonna
real
be a
with it.
pushover?
Yeah,
you're gonna be pushed over?
At least if I'm an asshole, they're like, oh, well, don't fuck with that guy because he's going to be a dick. Like, it's like, that's like, I don't know. Like, to me, when I see these kinds of things, it just reinforces my whole idea about this whole argument, which is that it's not about equality, it's about who's in control, and they want to be in control. They don't want everyone to have a say. They want them to be the only ones who have a say.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to get to the last thing of the night. I know this one's running a little long, but bear with me. We're going to be going through it quick. I want to talk about the wage gap myth. Now, for those out there who, are interested in reading up a little bit more about the particular wage gap, I'm going to have like an article that we're going to put in the description of this particular episode. We're going to have it in the Discord as something you can click on. So if you want to read it, you want to read up on what that's about, you can go for it. It gives a real good detail. But this video clip also details it out pretty well. And I'm going to highlight the major points after, but I figure the guy does a great job. Let's have him say what he's going to say about it.
Here we go.
This has been pointed out countless times by countless other people, but the wage gap is bullshit. And when I say it's bullshit, I don't mean that it doesn't exist. I mean it's bullshit because of the way it's presented.
Pause. He makes a kind of a big mistake in this particular thing. It's the only part that's a mistake. Is that he says that the wage gap doesn't exist. And to be more specific, he's referring to the fact that there is an inequality in the overall representation of the amount of wealth earned between men and women, but it's the framing of that particular statement that is the issue, and why I don't want anyone to watch this and go, well, haha, he admits it, so it must not be real. That's not. I mean,
but he kind of corrects it in the next sentence, doesn't he?
He does, but I just want to make sure that people don't dogpile.
Well, if they do, they're nothing but tabloids then.
Yeah, okay, well, all right, go ahead and play.
Because it's like, if you don't, so it's like the fact that he corrects it at least is a plus in my opinion.
Fair enough.
The observed wage gap is based on comparing the average income of men to the average income of women without considering any variables. Sometimes when the wage gap is brought up, they add women get paid less for the same jobs, but that's horseshit. Asking women why they get paid less than men is like asking why men are more likely to die in the workplace than women. It's because men and women tend to work different jobs. And just like some jobs are more dangerous than others, some jobs pay more than others, and since men tend to work higher paying jobs, such as those in STEM fields, men tend to make more money. And even when you are comparing men and women working the same jobs, there are things which factor into why men get paid more, such as the fact that men are more likely to work overtime, are more likely to ask for raises or promotions, are less likely to take time off, are more competitive.
So, you're a person who's pursuing a job in STEM. Do you feel like there's a lack of women in that particular field?
I mean, if I had to compare class sizes, I'd say there's like one female for like every 5 men.
Okay, so that's a pretty big gap.
It's a pretty big gap, but like a lot of people that I talk to outside of my major aren't really that interested in my major. Okay. So it's like, if that's the case, then that's the case.
Yeah, so it's interest driven, not necessarily prejudice, in your opinion.
Yeah, so it's just like, because it's like, I've seen statistics where, they try to accept more women. As long as, if they match the qualifications, they try to accept it to be, be seen as less prejudice. But like a lot of the women I talk to outside of my major are not interested in my major.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, your major is mathematics, right?
Yeah, it's mathematics.
Yeah, so I mean, it's yeah.
So it's just like, if there is a discrepancy, it's just people aren't interested. We get the people that are interested. They try to get the people that will give them a good name so that people keep coming to that university.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, I think that these people are trying to control, like, I think feminists are trying to control what people want. They don't take into consideration the fact that maybe you don't want to become, a police officer or work on an oil or, sit in a lab doing calculations. You want to sit in a desk job where you can gossip with your coworkers and do certain computer kind of like work. And to me, I think that like that's what I see. Now maybe I'm wrong, and anyone who sees this video who disagrees with me, share your disagreement in the comments. I want to see it. But yeah, this video goes on for a bit longer. I would highly encourage anybody who's interested in hearing a more detailed explanation of why the wage gap is a myth. Please go ahead and watch this guy's video. I mean, clearly, 26 million views. Clearly, he said something right.
Maybe.
So, I definitely would say, like, pay attention to what he had said if you care about these issues. And for everyone else out there, I'm going to more or less have a brief explanation of the wage gap discussed in the Patreon, as well as probably on Discord on Tuesday, which will begin at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. So,
Speaking of Discord,
yes,
we are thinking about a call-in show using our Discord. So we're thinking of an episode where, guests will state a problem and we discuss the problem in the world. But in order for that to happen, we need those guests to have a Discord account and join the server. And for those of you who pay attention to the Discord server, there has been a new voice channel added for the call-in specifically. So when we get more information on that, we're looking forward to it.
yeah, and if
having more voices on the show. Woohoo!
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a like a call-in person during that particular episode, feel free to message the show on Discord when you join, and then we'll take a note of that, and then we'll send you a message via Discord with more information surrounding the episode. But for the most part, like she had mentioned, it's going to be a show where basically you call in, you say, hey, this is a particular thing that I don't like, or maybe this is something that you think is kind of interesting to talk about, and we kind of discuss it. And then we move on to the next caller. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, feel free to send us a message. And instead of having it be an email and other stuff, just sign up for Discord, send it to the show via the Discord. All right, with that being said, I just want to thank you guys all for watching this particularly kind of long episode. I know it's not a topic that's super exciting, but I think it's an important one. And I'm glad that you guys all stuck it in and watched the show. So have a great rest of your night, you beautiful people, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.